What's up, Thrashers, and welcome back once again to the Thrash Maniac 99 YouTube channel, and I am back for another album review, and, well, excuse the pun, but I was dreading doing this review because, well, I've heard from a lot of people that this album's not that good, but I wanted to give my own thoughts on it, and that is the third studio solo album from Abbath, or Abbath, or Abbath, whatever you want to call him. I prefer to call him Abbath because it sounds like Sabbath, but without the S. I think it sounds cooler. Or Abbath, because why not? But yeah, so for those who have lived under a rock for the past 30 years, Abbath is one of the most famous names in all of black metal, and really in metal as a whole, because he was one of the masterminds behind one of the best Norwegian black metal bands of all time, Immortal. I mean, pretty much everything Immortal has ever done has been fantastic work. You know, from pure diabolical or pure full moon mysticism, or diabolical full moon mysticism, even up to the latest album, Northern Chaos Gods. Granted, that last one Abbath wasn't on because, well, sometime in about 2015, there was this big legal battle between Demonaz and Abbath over the rights to the Immortal name, and Abbath decided to just leave the band and form his own solo band, and 2 albums, both of them good albums. The first one I liked a little bit more than the last one, Outstrider. I think I may have reviewed both of these albums on this channel back when the channel's metal content wasn't the greatest, but I'm here to kind of keep the tradition going and talk about the third one, and, well, we're talking about Dread Reaver, the new one, and, yeah, it's on Season of Mist Records once again, and, yeah, do you want my opinion on this album? Like, honestly, I think so far out of all the albums I have listened to here in 2022, it pains me to say it, but this probably is the worst album I've heard so far this year. And it's not that it's necessarily an awful album, it's just not that great. It's just like, turns out whenever it came to production, well, I do realize that Abbath was in rehab for a little while prior to this album coming out to get clean from alcohol for the most part. And what better way to kind of help yourself through than by making music? And he decided to do his third solo album here. And of course the lineup you get for this album, Abbath's on vocals and guitars and some of the bass. You got Ukri Suviletto, I've got no idea and I apologize, on drums. You got Ole Andre Farstad on lead guitar and acoustic guitar, and Mia Wallace, who's also in Nervosa, on bass, but she's not even on all the songs. She's only on 4 tracks, which were Acid Haze, Scarred Core, The Deep Unbound, and the title track. Well, meanwhile, Abbath did the rest of the bass on the album. Also, Abbath did the mix on this album, and that is one of the reasons why this album suffers, in my opinion. The mix on this album was way off and very muddy and not good at all. It's like the drums kind of overpowered pretty much everything, and the guitars are there, but they're kind of lacking behind the drums, and then the vocals kind of sit in between. Meanwhile, you know there's bass because there is bass on here, but you can't really pick out a bass lick or a bass melody or even just a bass line. You can't really pick any out because of how muddy this production job was and how muddy the mix was. And also, it didn't help that a lot of these songs kind of started sounding the same. Like, this album, you want to talk about very repetitive songs, this is definitely the most repetitive album I've heard this year. It's just that a lot of these songs, like the way they were structured, shut up phone, like in the way that they were structured, it's like the riffs just kept repeating themselves over and over, and over again, and they just did not lend itself to the songs that these riffs were appearing on. Like Scarred Core and Dream Call, like those songs, I believe Dream Call was the first single off of this. I didn't actually listen to it when it came out because I was hearing from people like, oh, this is not good. And then I finally listened to it for this album. I can kind of see why. It's just the riffs don't go anywhere. The flow is off. Just, I don't know what the hell happened here. I will say that a couple of songs on here, like Myrmidon and Septentrion, those songs actually I think were pretty good songs for what they were going for. Especially Septentrion. That one kind of sounded closer to the other two Abbath albums, but also even a little bit of that classic Immortal sound a little bit. Those songs, I think, saved this album from being flat out bad, in my opinion. Another noteworthy thing I caught with this album was they covered Trapped Under Ice by Metallica. Now, I thought to myself when I saw the track listing, ooh, Abbath's gonna do a Metallica cover? Because he did a pretty good cover of Riding on the Wind by Judas Priest. I believe that was the song. It's been a while since I've listened to Abbath's stuff on the first album. And from all accounts, it was actually a good cover. I thought he would do the same thing here, but the way with the mix, or the way the mix was, and then also Abbath's vocals, I thought he would stick to his standard, like, raspy, froggy kind of vocals, which I will say, Abbath is maybe my favorite black metal vocalist of all time because he has such a unique style, and you can pick him out from pretty much every other black metal vocalist out there, and I love his delivery and cadence. But here on this cover, he tried to change his voice up, and it did not work for me. I thought he should have just stuck to his guns and did his classic vocals, and also if the production and the mix was a little bit better, I would love this cover. It's not bad, it's just, I feel like it would be better if, one, Abbath's voice was more traditional for himself, and if the mix and the production was a little bit better, then I think I'd be talking about this cover in a more positive light. And speaking of Abbath's vocals, like, his vocals are very inconsistent. Although I will say, I give him credit, he tried to experiment with his voice a little bit on this album, like, trying to do, like, lower stuff at points. Other times, he's doing his classic, raspy, froggy vocal style. And then he tries to bring in little tinges of melody in his voice, and it just felt flat. It just came off as flat. So, yeah, just so many factors here with this album as to why I am not feeling this album at all. And, yeah, like I said, the biggest complaints, the production and the mix was off. A lot of these songs, to me, just kind of sounded the same a little bit. I will say some riffs on this album were actually really, really good. Some of these riffs kind of bring back a little bit of classic metal tones like Motorhead and even Judas Priest. Like, especially in Septentrion, there were a couple of moments where it's like, ooh, am I listening to an 80s metal song here? And even on Myrmidon, kind of bringing in a little bit of that influence. But aside from that, a lot of these riffs just kind of stay in one place, and it did not work. So, the combination of the lack of creativity as well as the lack of more changing within the riffs, Abbath's vocals, and the production, I feel bad for doing this because I love Abbath. He's probably the biggest metal spirit animal to ever exist. Or at least one of them. Like, he's up there with LG from Entombed, Corpse Grinder from Cannibal Corpse. And I'll even put Dave Grohl up there, even though he's been in Foo Fighters and Nirvana. He's a big metalhead and he's a metal spirit animal. So, yeah, he's in that company for me. But, and like I said, it pains me to do this because I love Abbath. I love his stuff in Immortal. The other two Abbath albums are good. This is the lowest score I've given to an album so far this year, or so far since I've been doing the out of 10 scale for the past year, roughly, over a year. I'm going to give this one a 6.5 out of 10. And that might be being generous because, like I said, there are a couple of really good songs. Myrmidon and Septentrion. Those songs, I think, save this album from being 6 or under. Because those songs, I would probably go back and jam. Other than that, not a whole lot else. I'm not saying this is a flat-out bad album. It's just average, run-of-the-mill. It's just there. That's all I gotta say. I'm hoping that after this has happened, maybe for the next album, I will kind of get things toned. We'll have things more dialed in on the next album with the production, and hopefully some of the experimentation that he was trying to do on a couple of moments on this album, hopefully they'll pay off a little bit more on the next one. But I have to give this a 6.5 out of 10. It's not a terrible album, it's just run-of-the-mill, average, vanilla. That's like the nicest and meanest thing I can say about it. Like I said, it pains me to do it because I love Abbath. He's one of the coolest dudes ever. But I have to be objective here. But of course, that's just my opinion. What did you guys think of Dread Reaver by Abbath? Let me know in the comments section below. And until next time, horns high, and I will see you soon. So, as far as the album itself goes, I mean, this is a forgotten album within the world of death metal, and we're going to go into why song by song. So, a quick little 45-second introduction. I can never pronounce this right. Borivho's Demise? If somebody can tell me how the hell you pronounce that, please tell me. Fun little groovy 45-second introduction track into the real opener, Incinerated, which just comes in straight out of nowhere with grindy blast beats and grindcore-esque riffing before it just goes into some great meat and potatoes.